Today, I want to talk about a show called Dark Matter. This show is about a physicist living in Chicago who finds himself in an alternate version of his life. Episode one, we center on Jason, and Jason's with his family. He has a wife. His wife's name is Daniela, and his son's name is Charlie. They're in the kitchen. Jason and his wife are making dinner, and they're being really lovey-dovey. And it shows, of course, how beautiful the family is, because Charlie's just sitting there like, "Oh, stop it, you two. It's so gross." They show Jason teaching his class, and he's talking about Schrodinger's cat. Jason explains superposition. The cat is both dead and alive at the same time. So Jason is at home with his wife, and he tells her that Ryan got the Pavia Award, and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And she wonders, why is Ryan texting Jason so much? And Jason said, "Well, I guess he wants me to come to his celebration or whatever." And she said, "Dude, that's your friend. You should be going to support your friend." So Jason finally gives in, and he goes down to the bar, and Ryan is excited to see him. He says, "Jason, I have a proposition for you. My rich friend has $100 million, and we're going to start a company, and we want you to come and work with us." So Jason gets drunk. He's having a ball with his buddy, and he kind of loosens up and everything after that. And after he's done, he's walking home. A guy tells him to stop, and he looks around, and there's a guy with a mask on his face and a gun. And he tells him, "Get in the car." Well, Jason ends up at this abandoned warehouse in the middle of nowhere, and the kidnapper takes him down into the basement. The kidnapper stands there facing Jason, and he says, "Take your clothes off." And Jason is like, "Who are you? What do you want?" And he's like, "Just take your clothes off." So Jason strips, and then the kidnapper gives him some clothes to put on instead and takes his clothes from him. And the kidnapper also asks him for his phone and the password. Well, Jason is getting scared. He tries to attack the kidnapper, and it doesn't work out. The kidnapper overpowers him and knocks him to the ground, and then the kidnapper injects him with something, and he tells him, "Jason, this is for your own good." And Jason is like, "Why? What are you doing? What did you give me? Why are you doing this? Who are you?" And the kidnapper says, "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." And then Jason is kind of like passing out from whatever he got. Jason wakes up, and he's not in the basement anymore. He's in more of a sterile looking environment. So then a beautiful woman walks in, and she starts hugging him like she's his best friend. Her name is Amanda, and she takes him over to meet to a room with glass around it. It's a viewing room, and there are people on the other side of the glass looking in, and they're clapping and applauding. She introduces him to a man, and Jason says, "Oh yeah, I know the Leighton." Amanda is a lab psychiatrist. Leighton is a CEO of a company, and apparently Jason is the lead scientist and the co-founder of this company. Jason is very upset. He's very confused. So Jason runs away. He jumps in the cab. Then they show Jason walking up to the house, and then they show him walking inside. Next, they show the kidnapper. He gets out of his car. He walks up to the same house, and he walks right in. And then you realize that Jason, when he walks into the kitchen, Amanda is there waiting for him. And he's like, "Where is my wife?" And she's like, "Jason, I live here." Then they show the kidnapper, and they actually show his face finally, and he has the same face as Jason. So from now on, the kidnapper is will be called Jason 2, and Jason 1 in full freak out mode. Amanda gets the phone call and she's like, "Yes, okay, I understand." He runs away again because the people from the company are now here. Meanwhile, back at the original house, Jason too is getting his freak on. Well, not yet, but he's about to. Like he and Jason one's wife Daniela are in bed and they're getting like, and then he takes his shirt off and and he has a bandage all the way down his arm. And Danielle is like, wait, what happened? He just says to her, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. We have Jason 1, and he is in the reality from Jason 2. He's running from the security from Velocity Labs, and they're led by Dawn. And while he's running, he comes down an alley and he sees that he's near his favorite bar. So he goes in there and he sees the bartender that he was very friendly with. And he starts trying to talk to him, but the guy is like, I don't know you. And he keeps saying, Matt, you know me. I was just here with my friend Ryan, and you opened up the back room for us, and he was having a celebration, and you opened a bottle of really expensive alcohol. And Matt said, you mean that bottle? It hasn't been cracked. I haven't sold an ounce of it all week. So Jason 1 goes to the hospital and he gets a brain scan done, and it comes back that nothing's wrong. Everything looks normal. There's just a little bit of bruising or whatever. And they did find a substance in his body that they couldn't identify. And the doctor tells him, hey, we can run some more tests and we can do another evaluation and try to figure out what's going on. And Jason 1 kind of went along with it. And as soon as the doctor left, he was like, I'm out of there. And meanwhile, back at Velocity Labs, they pretty much figured out that someone like Jason would probably be thinking something was wrong with him, and he would probably go to the hospital to go and get checked out. So they decided to look at the hospitals. And as Jason 1 is leaving, he almost runs into Dawn, but luckily he's wearing a lab coat and he's able to hide his face, and so he gets away. Jason 1 decides to track down Daniela. He finds out that she is an artist. So he goes to an opening of a show that she's putting on, and he's surprised to see his face is everywhere. She had done this entire exhibit inspired by him. And while he's there, he looks and he sees her, and there's sparks flying. Jason kind of says, hypothetically, what if Daniela was his wife for 15 years? He had a son named Charlie. Ryan just bounced, and that left Daniela alone with Jason 1. She pretty much says, look, are you messing with me? Because 15 years ago, when I told you I was pregnant, you were like, oh, no, I can't deal with that. I got things to do. I got a life to live and a career to have. And you just kind of left me. And because I wasn't going to do it by myself, I just made the decision to take my career too. So after looking through some old things from Jason 2, Jason 1 realized, what if the kidnapper was me, another version of me? And what if he built a box where he could superposition people instead of an atom, and he is able to come into my reality and take my place? And Daniela was like, what are you on about? And just when they're kind of getting cozy and, about to, someone knocks at the door and Dawn comes in and she has a weapon pulled. And Jason one jumps in front of Daniela too, and he says, "Hey, wait a minute, wait a minute. She doesn't have anything to do with this. Please, please don't hurt her. Don't let her go, let her go." And Daniela has her phone in her hand, and Dawn says, "Put the phone down." And Jason one says, "Put it down, do what she says." But as he says that, Dawn shoots. We see Jason one getting knocked to the ground and he's distraught and he's looking over at Daniela, who looks to be not with us anymore. We see Jason 2, he's in the universe that Jason 1 came from. We see Jason 2 going back to the abandoned factory where he had kidnapped Jason 1, and he's setting up cameras all over the place. And then it pans back when he's in the car, he's looking at the camera feed, and it pans back and you can see there's a giant box there. Episode 3 is titled The Box. We're in Jason 2's world with Jason 1, who is trapped there. In the last episode, he witnessed another version of his wife of 15 years. He witnessed her being ended by Dawn. And then he was recaptured by the Velocity Labs team and brought back to the company. So he's sitting in the room, bound, and Leighton 2 comes in and he pretty much says, "Hey, I'm so sorry for what happened. I take all responsibility. So sorry, man, whatever, whatever." And Jason 1 is like, "Look, what's going on?" And Leighton is trying to ask him, "What is going on with the box? How do you use it? Please tell us how to use it because you're the only person who came back from the mission." And Jason 1 says, "I really don't remember. I don't remember anything." And of course he doesn't remember because he's not the same Jason. We know that though. So Leighton 2 says, "Okay, I'll show you the box," because Jason 1 pretty much outright says, "Show me the box." So he takes him in, and the big giant box is there looking all impressive, and Jason 1 is awestruck, and they're kind of talking about some of the mechanics of it, that there's a drug, the lavender fairy drug, that is used. It's injected, and the box, you go into the box, and then the people who've gone in there haven't come back, except for Jason. And they show him the footage, and the footage is of Jason 2 going into the box, and he has like stuff with him, and he's very purposeful. And then a year later, it shows Jason 1, our Jason, stumbling out of the box. They take him back to the room and they send in Ryan to talk to him. So Ryan in this world, Ryan 2, he is not as successful as he is in Jason 1's world. And also Ryan in this world and Jason in this world are not as friendly as they are in Jason 1's world. So they're talking, and Ryan mentions that Leighton had been in touch with him and he had been calling him, and he had called him at the time when Daniela and Jason were with Ryan. If you remember in the last episode, Ryan left after getting a phone call, and Ryan said he called Leighton back, and he told him about what was going on with Jason 1. And Jason 1 pretty much said, "Oh, that's how they found out. They sent someone there and Daniela's dead." And Ryan was like, "What?" He got really upset. He's like, "Oh no, it's all my fault. I did it. I did this. I'm so sorry, man. I did this. I did this." And Jason One is like, "No, don't blame yourself." Ryan was asking about the drug that Jason had asked him to create, the lavender fairy. He said, "I've been trying to figure out what it's for, and you never gave me any information. I know that it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, but I'm not sure. Like, what are you using this for?" So Ryan leaves and Leighton 2 comes back in, and Leighton 2 is grilling Jason 1, and he pretty much figured out that Jason 1 is not who he says he is. So he's asking him, "So where's our Jason? Where's our Jason?" And Jason 1 is pissed. He's like, "You sent that woman to Daniela's house, didn't you? You're the reason she's gone." And he attacks Leighton and he's like, boom, 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 trying to fight him. And Dawn comes in and she grabs Jason 1 and she's about to stab him in the neck, but Leighton stops her and they pretty much restrain Jason 1 and leave. Well, in the meantime, Amanda, I guess she's feeling sorry for Jason 1 and she's believing his story. So she came in and she said, "Look, we have to leave. We're getting out of here. I'm getting you out of here." And so they start running down the corridors. And then, of course, the security finds them and they're running and running. And they get to the room where the box is at. And they grab some vials, they grab some gear, and they run into the box. And just when they're trying to close the door, Dawn puts her hand in the door to try to open it, or I don't know what she was thinking, but that's a big, giant, heavy door. So she puts her hand in there and they close the door and boom, like her fingers, all her fingers are dropping to the floor inside the box. And on the outside, Dawn is screaming, of course, because she's hurt. And inside the box, Jason's like, "What now?" And Amanda says, "Well, the door will stay closed for 3 minutes." And then she injects both of them and she says, "Hopefully that'll be enough time and we'll be gone." After a couple of minutes, they open the door, and instead of seeing the lab that they just came from, it's an infinite corridor that's glowing and has doors all down it. And they just stand there looking off into space. So we cut to Jason 2, and Jason 2 is having a little struggle because he's a little different from Jason 1. There was a dinner party that, of course, he didn't know about because he's not the right Jason. And Daniela reminded him, and then when he heard about the people who were going to be there, he decided to go to social media and he started looking them up and trying to figure out their names and things about them so that he could kind of get by and pretend like he was who he was supposed to be. During the party, Ryan came and Ryan was like, "Hey," like happy to see him and hugging him and all of that. And of course, he was a little cold and arrogant because that's who he is. And he doesn't have that same relationship with Ryan in his world. He did pretty much make it through the night. During this episode, he searches through the office because he keeps hearing about Max. And so he's looking to find information about who this Max is. And it turns out that Max was a child that was born after Charlie, like his younger brother. And Leighton, too, he decides he's going to go and chase after Amanda and Jason 1. So he injects himself and he goes into the box alone. Episode 4 is titled The Corridor. And we start with Jason 1 and Amanda, the travelers. They are in the box, they're standing in the infinite corridor, and Amanda is looking around and she's asking, how far do you think this goes? And Jason says, it's infinite. This is a mental construct. And basically, it's our mind trying to interpret infinite realities and possibilities. And she's just, what? so, um, so they decide that since they're here, and eventually they're gonna need food and water. So they decide to just start opening doors and see where they lead. The first door they open is of Chicago, where the Velocity Labs is located. They walk outdoors and it's on the lake, and you can see like the lakefront and all of the big skyscrapers along the skyline and all that. However, it's more apocalyptic because everything is covered in ash. Even inside of the Velocity Labs, when they opened the door, there were no people around, but there was ash everywhere. And outdoors, there's ash everywhere. And they're they're walking a little bit, and then they look and they see the skyscrapers starting to crumble in the distance. And then one of the buildings really close to them, it starts crumbling. And I'm telling you, like, I was freaking out. I was like, run, you dumb it. Run, run, run. Because they're just standing there looking like, oh. And I was like, run, okay. Finally, they start running, and they barely make it back inside of the labs, and they run and they get back into the box, and they're coughing. They can't just sit there in the box, and they only have a finite supply of the drug, the lavender fairy. So that's another thing. It lasts a certain amount of time, and also if they don't find a reality before they run out of drug, they might be trapped there. The second door they opened was in the woods, and they have a little mm, GPS, I guess. And Amanda asked him, is this the same location? And Jason wanted to say, yeah, it is. So they go back into the box, close the door, and Jason one opens the door again, and they still see the woods there. So he confirms that during the session, each session of the Lavender Fairy, the doors are fixed. So whatever door they open, it will always open to the same world during that session. They move on, they open a third door, and the third door was it had no atmosphere. The sun looked to be very close to the earth. There were burnt bodies and ash everywhere, and everything looked all crispy. And they started choking, and there was no sound. And Jason hurriedly closed the door. They opened another door, and it's the lab. So they're like, okay, cool. So they creep out into the lab, and they're looking, and they see another version of themselves standing in the hallway, and across from them are the security from Velocity Labs, and they have weapons on pointed at them, and Jason's saying, no, no, please stop, she doesn't have anything to do with it. And then someone shoots, and Amanda drops to the ground. Leighton is there from this version of the world, and that version of Leighton looks over and he sees the two of them. And then Amanda and Jason run back into the box. The fifth word, so when they get back in, they say, oh, we got to keep going. And the fifth door they open is there's a lot of water and waves, and it's underwater almost, and so they struggle. They almost don't get the door closed because this giant wave is coming towards them, and they close it just in time. And then the next door that they open looks like it's buried under in the earth. And then they just start opening more and more doors, and all of the doors are leading to some kind of nightmare type of world. And they're just getting really frustrated at this point. So this part really, I was pissed off. I was just, oh, Amanda is a psychiatrist. She is training the scientists to be professional and be able to complete their missions. She starts freaking out. She runs down the corridor, and Jason's like, "Stop, Amanda, stop." And she's just like, "Ah." And she's like, "It can't be this far. It can't be forever. It can't be forever." She's just flipping out. And Jason catches up with her, and and he's like, "I'm sorry, but it is. It's an infinite amount of possibilities." It's And she said, "It's not real. It's not real." And he's like, "It is real, but this visual that we're experiencing is our brain's way of dealing with the reality." And she's flipping out. She said, I can't anymore. I can't." So she just grabs the door, opens it, and runs out into this blizzard, frozen landscape. And Jason's calling. He's like, "Amanda, come back, come back. You're going to freeze." And so she's not listening. She's just running. And so he has to run after her, and he catches up and he's like, "Amanda, we're gonna freeze. We need to go back." And they turn around and they don't see the box anymore. And she said, "I can't see. It's dark, it's snowing, and it's super cold." So, and of course, they weren't dressed for that. They were dressed for being in they weren't dressed for sub-zero, possibly temperatures. So Jason one says, "We need to find shelter." And he looks around and he sees a house nearby that is not buried. And he picks up Amanda because by now she's fainted. Oh, I was so pissed at her. Oh. And he has to carry her. He takes her to the house, and he finds some blankets, covers her up, gets some matches, and looks around. There's a frozen dog sitting by a bowl of food or something, and he just kind of hunkers in for the night. So the next morning, when he gets up, he goes out to look, and he realizes that everything's buried. Like, everything that's not super tall, like the skyscrapers or whatever, is pretty much buried under the all of the snow that fell last night, and the box is buried. So it's not there. They don't even know, they can't even see it. So when Amanda wakes up later on, he tells her that, and they're just sitting in front of a cozy fire, and they start bonding. They also realize that they're frightened and they're anxious, and so these worlds that they're experiencing are the ones that are reflections of how they're feeling and their thoughts. So they realize that they need to control their thoughts. We see Leighton too, and he's inside of the box. He's inside of the corridor, actually. And he doesn't look so good. He is limping. He has a bruise or cut, and drip. It looks like it was bleeding, and he's just looking so like determined, but also frustrated and maybe a little scared. And he walks up, he opens the door. It looks like maybe the ashy Chicago that Amanda and Jason saw earlier. And he closes the door and just walks on. So we go to Jason 2. Jason 2, he's cutting it up, boy. He is trying to exist in Jason 1's world. And so he goes to the school where Jason 1 worked. Many of the students in the class are on their laptops, they're on their phones, they're not paying attention. And he's just like, you know what? Put your devices away and pull out a pen and paper. We're about to have a pop quiz. And then everybody groans. And then one guy says, hey, I only have a laptop. I take my notes on here and I don't have a pen and paper. And so Jason 2 says, what's on your screen right now? And the guy says, YouTube. And Jason 2 says, you failed. And then he says, what about you? What's on your screen? And the guy's like, he's like, you failed. Do you have a piece of paper? You failed. So he said, okay, all of you who have devices and don't have a pen and paper, you all failed. And I forgot, when he walked into the classroom, he had an attitude in the first place. When he saw that they weren't paying attention, he took his bottle, and he had a drink, and he threw it across the room. He just said, he's like, you know what? I don't have to deal with this. And he just walks out of the class. Jason 2 tracks down Leighton 1 in this world. Jason 2 says, I have something to show you. And Jason 2 takes Leighton 1 to the place where the box is at in this world, where the Velocity Labs is located in World 2. However, in this world, Leighton never took over Velocity Labs and he never started that project. They get to the box and Leighton 1 is impressed. He's like, what? You built this? And Jason 2 says it's complicated. And he tells Leighton 1 that he needs to clear his thoughts and he needs to think of positive things because it will affect the experience. So they go in and he shows Leighton 1 a nice fluffy world. And then when they come back, Leighton 1 is just, his mind is blown. He's like, was this real or was that the drugs? What's going on? And Jason 2 says, it's all real. He said, I'm not from this world. And you and I are very good friends. We're tight. We started the company together and you helped me. We built this box together. We go back to Daniela 1 and Charlie. And Charlie is like, is Dad okay? Because he's been acting kind of weird. And Daniela 1 is like, yeah, well, you know, he's okay. It'll be all right. And then Jason 2 walks in and then he tells Charlie, he's like, yeah, you only turned 16 once. He said, here you go, guy. Here's your present. And he gives him a little box. So Charlie opens the box and it's keys to a car. And he's like, what? And Jason 2's like, yep. It's outside. It's parked outside. It starts with Jason 1 and Amanda. They've been trying to find Jason 1's world still, and they realize that it's their emotions that are holding them back. Amanda and Jason 1 land in a world that it looks okay, but the lab and everything are empty. And then they run into Blair, who in Jason 1's world, Blair is a friend of Daniela 1. And the Blair in World 1 is a lawyer. So this Blair happens to be an engineer. This Blair was from Amanda's world, and when they went exploring in a team, she was reported missing, and she's been missing for over a year. But what happened was she had gotten onto a world with these crazy big bugs or things or something. And when she came out of the box into this world that they're in right now, she brought those bugs with her. And the bugs just came out into the world and infected everything. They multiplied exponentially, and they also devoured everything in sight. So they tell her that they're going to go back into the box. They don't have a lot of ampules, but they don't want to stay there. And they invite her to come, but she doesn't want to go back in the box. She tells them that no matter how hard you try to control your thoughts, it's almost impossible. But they're still having trouble finding the right world. So he writes down information about his family, and they start trying to explore. And then they get outside and they see that there are no people. There are cars just stopped in the middle of the street. And Amanda says, let's go back. This doesn't feel right. But Jason 1 says, no, I have to at least go home. I need to see my house. And so Jason 1 knocks on the door. Daniela answers. And the first thing she says, too, is that I don't want to get you sick. And he finds out that Charlie died and that another version of him was taken away. A couple of cars are pulling up and some soldiers, and the doctor comes out and he runs outside, and they're asking, what are you doing outside? And he says, my wife is sick. Please look at her. So the doctor goes inside and says, yeah, there's really nothing we can do for her. So they give him some syringes in order to make the last hours of Daniela's life more comfortable. So the next world that they go to, this one, he thinks might be his world as well. So he goes into the house at night, and he goes upstairs and sees Daniela in the bedroom. And as soon as she sees him, she freaks out and she starts screaming. And he's like, wait, it's me. And she's like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in jail. Why are you here? And then Charlie runs in, and Charlie tackles him and knocks him down to the ground. And he gets up, and Daniela's calling the police. And he's like, no, I'll leave. And then when he's leaving, he says, I love you. Meanwhile, Jason 2 is in World 1, and he is taking Leighton 1 on trips into the box, and he's teaching him how to use the box. So they make a deal so that for every ampule that Jason 2 gives Leighton 1, Leighton 1 will give Jason 2 $1 million. Jason 2 mentions that he's gonna close off the box, and Leighton 2 is like, yeah, fine. There's nothing here for me anymore. So Jason 2 goes back to his world 2, and while he's there, he runs into a lab employee, and she tells him that Amanda and Jason 1 escaped into the box. And he's like, what? So he grabs a case of ampules and books it back to World 1. And he gives like 50 of them to Leighton 1. So he's pretty much set. The next episode, episode 6, is called Superposition. Jason 2 is encouraging Daniela 1 to resume painting, and she agrees. She starts painting, and then in the meantime, at one point he takes Charlie out and takes him to meet up with his friends. And on the way back, Charlie was upset because he saw this girl that he likes talking to another boy, and Jason 2 was trying to cheered him up. So he gave him some ice cream, but he didn't realize that the ice cream had nuts, and Charlie has a nut allergy. So he was able to get injected with the EpiPen. However, Jason 2 did take him to the hospital so that he could get checked up. Daniela came and she was not happy at all. She's like, why would you? And Jason 2 was just apologizing. I didn't notice. I'm so sorry. I didn't read the ingredients. And she was like, So while they were at the hospital also, Daniela saw that there were track marks on Jason 2's arm as well. She was talking to her friend Blair, who in this world, Blair is a lawyer. And in the other world, in the previous episode, Blair had been a lab employee because she wasn't able to get into the law school that she wanted. So Daniela 1 is talking to Blair 1, and she's telling her about her concerns with her husband. So Blair is like, so you're saying that he's hotter, cleaner, and he is more successful? Daniela does mention he almost got their son, Charlie, killed because he forgot about the nut allergy. And on top of that, she saw that he has track marks. So Blair said, oh no, you should have told me that in the first place. She said, you need to follow him. So Daniela's like, no, that's kind of weird. I don't know. Jason 2 is still thinking he's going to do a romantic gesture. So Daniela 1 comes into the bedroom and he has this beautiful, I thought the dress was banging, especially when she put it on and it had this little cutout thing. Anyway, he has this beautiful dress laid out on the bed for her. And he also told her that he has a surprise evening and he wants to blindfold her so that she can't see where they're going. So he takes her, and then he takes the blindfold off, and they're at the gallery that she works at, and there's a charity auction that night that she had been working with. And when she comes inside, she realizes that he took her painting of herself and he told her co-workers to put it in the show in a prominent position up on the wall. And she just felt so humiliated. She told him, she said, look, it was my decision. I haven't painted in years and it wasn't ready. I am so humiliated that you did that. And he told her it's a good painting, and everyone they were very happy to put it up there. And she said, but it was my decision. You don't get it. So they get home and he says, I have to step out for a bit. And she's like, okay, whatever. And then she decides she's going to follow this dude. So she follows him and he goes to the storage facility. And when he leaves, she goes over and she's able to get a little piece up so that she can peek underneath, and she sees this little ampule on the ground. So she goes to Ryan 1 and she tells him, look, something's wrong with Jason. He's been acting crazy. He's been acting weird. Da 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 da. And on top of that, he has this drug. I saw track marks. And he's like, Jason? So he agrees to analyze it and see what the drug is. After he analyzes it, he contacts Jason and they meet at their bar and they're talking, and Ryan pretty much accuses Jason 2 of stealing his research because Ryan won on this world. He won an award and he had like funding and he was starting a company and all of that. And he feels like Jason stole his research because it's very similar to a compound that he's been working on. And Jason 2 tells him, yeah, he tells him the reason, like how it works and what it's for. And then he says, I got to show you something. Jason 2 takes Ryan 1 to the box, and he takes him inside, and he tells him, hey, you got to clear your mind. And then he takes him to a fluffy world. He says, this world is very progressive, and it's a wonderful world. And Ryan 1 is mesmerized. Meanwhile, Jason 2 is backing up to the box, and he just closes the door and leaves Ryan 1 there. Jason 2 then goes back to World 1, and he hires contractors to come and encase the box in concrete so that nobody can come through anymore. Episode 7 is called In the Fires of Dead Stars. A detective comes to the house, and the reason she's there is because Ryan 1 was reported missing by his girlfriend. So Daniela 1 mentions that she saw Ryan 1 5 days ago at his apartment. And then Jason 2 says, yeah, I saw him 3 days ago at the bar we both frequent, and he was fine. And the detective says, yeah, there's CCTV footage of him and you at the bar together, but that's the last place that he was seen before he disappeared. So after she leaves, Daniela 1 she's been suspicious this whole time, of course. So she confronts Jason 2, and she asks him about the ampule, and she even shows it to him. And he's like, where'd you get that from? And she said, I followed you, and I was at the storage unit. What is this? And he says, well, it's my research I've been working on for years, and basically it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, and it allows you to see macro objects that are in superposition. And she's like, So she asked him, well, have you been having any side effects or anything? Have you been using it? And he said, yeah, I've been testing it, and there are no side effects whatsoever. Because of the visit from the detective and Daniela 1 being so suspicious of him, he realizes he has to fix the thing with Ryan being missing. So he goes back to the box with the sledgehammer, and he opens up a hole so that he can go back in it. And then he goes to another world where Ryan is not as successful. He is a manager at a garage. And the reason being is that when he was in college, he was drunk driving and he hurt someone, and it ruined his life. He wasn't able to have the path that he would have wanted. And Jason 2 asked him, he says, do you ever think about what if? And Ryan in this world says, all the time. So Jason 2 takes this dude, and he just takes him back to World 1 and sets him up as the Ryan there. Meanwhile, Amanda and Jason 1 they decided that, hey, this is too much. We need a break. We've been traveling for a month or so. And Amanda decides to pick the world this time. And she chooses it by not thinking of people, but she thinks of ideas and things that would make a world nice to live in. So they split up, and they both explore the world on their own terms, and then they meet up later. Well, Amanda tells Jason 1 that she wants to stay. This version of herself in this world went missing a couple of years ago. So her plan is to set up house as the Amanda from this world, and then move to another city where nobody would know her. And she wants Jason 1 to stay with her because they're running really low on ampules. They had about 5 left, and there's 2 of them, so that's 2 trips really. They hug and they have a cute little kiss, and then Jason 1 kind of drops a couple of the ampules into her bag just in case while she's not looking, and then they part their ways. And Jason 1 goes to a couple more worlds, and then on his last ampule, he makes it to his world. And when he gets there, he knows he's there because he sees the bartender, and the bartender knows who he is. And then he just starts stalking himself. He starts standing in the street, watching himself and trying to see what what he's up to, watching Daniela, that kind of thing. He decides that he needs a weapon. So he goes to a gun shop, and the person who is helping him tells him that you're gonna need to apply for a license. You can't just walk in and get one of these. And so he buys something else and then leaves. But then you see him returning to the same shop. The person working in the desk says, well, I just told you you can't get that without a license, and then you bought some mace and other stuff and left. And Jason 1 says, wait, no, this is my first time being here. And the shop person says, but do you have a twin or a brother or something? And then Jason 1, you can see his mind the gears are like, ooh. Episode 8 is called Jupiter. And it starts with a Jason who is stalking Jason 2. You can tell it's Jason 2 because he's got the nice duds. They start scuffling a little bit, and Jason 2 gets the better of the Jason that's stalking him, and he ends up basically just pretty much slamming him to the ground until he stops moving. So Daniela visits Ryan. Remember, this is not Ryan 1. This is the Ryan that Jason 2 took from the other world. And she's really confused because he keeps insisting that he's a mechanic, and that's how he knows her is because she was a client of his. Ryan from the other world tells her that he was having drinks with the guy, and that's the last thing he remembers. So Daniela shows him a picture of Jason on her phone, and Ryan says, yeah, that's him. So our Jason 1 was at the hotel, and he noticed that he's been followed by another Jason. So he kind of ducks into the pub, his favorite bar, and when he gets inside, he notices that there's another Jason sitting over in the corner in a booth. So he goes over there, and the other Jason is kind of rough looking. He has like scars on his face, and he has a skull cap on, and he's wearing just like a little, like a zip up jacket. Whereas our Jason 1 is wearing a pea coat and, his little standard gear. They realized that they both started out as Jason 1. However, the rough-looking Jason said that his Amanda was lost on some kind of very dangerous world. And our Jason said, yeah, my Amanda picked a world and decided she wanted to stay there. Jason 1 is talking to the other Jason 1 in the bar, and as they're talking, they realize, so every decision that I made resulted in multiple Jasons being created. And then the other one said, yeah, and you know what? Each one of those Jasons, every decision they made created multiple Jasons as well, and so on and so on. So Jason 1 goes into a cafe, and he takes out a cigar and he just starts smoking it in the middle of the cafe, and everybody's pissed off. They're like, look, wait, you can't smoke here. The owner comes over, tells him not to smoke, and people are grumbling. And then he kind of shouts out, he says, does anybody have a problem with me smoking this cigar? And everybody says, yeah, stop it, put it out, get out of here. And eventually the police come and they take him away. He uses his phone call to call Daniela, and she comes to pick him up, and he's so happy to see her, because remember, he hasn't seen her in over a month. And he goes to her, and so she's pushing him away and saying, how dare you, no more lies, no more lies. And he tells her, he says, look, I am not who you think I am. That guy that you were with, that's another version of me. And she's like, uh-huh. So he tells her, he said, call me. Just if I ever ask you to do one thing, just call me right now. So she's still looking like whatever, and she pulls out the phone and dials his number, and then Jason 2 answers. Charlie had said that Jason 2 had promised to take him to University of Chicago and do a tour, because that was Jason's alma mater. So Jason 2 he knows he's being followed. He keeps seeing Jason's everywhere. So he takes Charlie to the school, and he thinks that he got, kind of shook them or whatever. But while he's there, he sees a Jason, and this Jason has like his whole side of his face is scarred up. Like it looks like he was burnt or something. And so he tells Charlie, he says, meet me outside at such and such a place. And then he takes off, and the Jason that's following him follows him. They go into a bathroom. They start scuffling and rolling around, and the scarred Jason pulls out a knife, and he's trying to stab Jason 2, and Jason 2 is just like fighting him. And then finally Jason 2 gets the better of the scarred Jason, and he's able to kind of choke him out. And he takes his knife and he puts the scarred Jason into a bathroom stall, and he uses the knife to lock the door. So then he starts going back towards where Charlie's at. Meanwhile, Charlie parked the car, and remember, Charlie is only 15, maybe 16. He just got his permit, so he's not allowed to drive by himself. So he's kind of parking the car in the spot where he's supposed to meet his dad, and the police roll up, and they're like, license and registration, and Charlie's reaching for it, and he's just, you can tell he's sweating bullets. And thankfully Jason 2 comes running up at that moment. He's like, wait, it's my car, that's my son, he's just waiting for me. We'll go. And the cop is like, you can't park here. And he's like, yeah, we're out of here. So they leave. So now that Daniela believes Jason won, they make a plan to meet later. And because there are so many Jasons running around, Jason 1 tells Daniela, we need a safe word, but I can't think of it, because if any word that I would think of, then the other Jasons would think of as well. So she said Jupiter. And Daniela goes home. Charlie and Jason 2 get back. Jason 2 says, look, we need to get out of here. And Daniela's like, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, let's just go away. And so Daniela, he keeps saying, did you get a bag? And Daniela's like, yeah. And she starts walking she's walking into the basement, and Jason 2 starts walking into the basement, and he walks ahead of her and starts going down the stairs, and she pushes him, and he falls down, and he passes out at the end of the stairs, and then she closes the door. She and Charlie go in the Honda to meet Jason 1 at the meeting spot, And when they get there, she walks up to him and she says, "Say it." And he says, "Jupiter." And then they hug and he's so happy, and he sees Charlie and he's so happy. He hugs him really tight, and Charlie's really confused because he doesn't know what's going on. By the way, they had taken her friend Blair's car. They borrowed her car and they're driving away, and Jason says, "Look, I can't pick the place, so one of you has to do it where we're going." So Charlie says, "I know the place to go." And apparently one of his friends, his parents had this beautiful house that they used sometime by the lake. Episode 9 is called Entanglement. Charlie, Jason 1, our Jason 1, and Daniela are having a nice little retreat in the lake house. And Jason 1 decides to go online and check his email. He sees a message called Entanglement. And when he opens it up, it's from himself, and it says, "Welcome to the Entanglement," or something like that. And so when he clicks on the link, it's to a chat room. And at the top, it says 101 users now online. And it gave him a number, Jason 71. And there are like all these Jasons in there chatting and talking about how they're going to get Daniela, and I'm the real Jason, you're not the real Jason. And then Jason start messaging him, asking if he wants to team up and kill all of the other Jasons, and then they can figure it out between the two of them. So meanwhile, at the house, one of the Jason ones, a really rough looking one who had a gun and he's just beat up looking, he has one of those skull caps and the zip up jacket. He's going through the house and he realizes that Daniela and Charlie are gone, but he does find Jason 2 in the basement. And he asks Jason 2, "Where are they? Where are they?" And Jason 2 says, "I don't know." Beat up Jason said to Jason 2, "So if you don't know where they're at, you're no use to me." So he starts beating up on Jason 2, who already just got knocked down the stairs by his wife. And he's like, boop, 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 boop. So Jason 2 had told him that Daniela took her friend's car. So he contacts Blair, and Blair comes over and she sees two Jasons there. She sees the Jason 2 on the floor, all tied up and looking beat up. And then she sees the other Jason, the one that looks kind of rough. And she's like, "What is going on here?" Rough looking Jason is like, where are they? Where are they? And he's pointing a gun at her, but Blair is smart and she's able to get the gun away from him, and she turns the tables on him and like knocks him out. And then she unties Jason 2. So meanwhile, back at the lake house, Jason 1 and Daniela, they've been having like a beautiful reunion, if you know what I mean. And afterwards, Jason 1 was walking around and he heard something. And he looked outside and he saw like a shadow of a person running past. And so he went outside to investigate. Oh my gosh, I can't stand it when people go outside and investigate. But you know what? I guess I get it, because when I hear noises in my house, I go and investigate too. And I have opened the door to see what a noise was outside as well. So anyway, I digress. Our Jason 1 goes outside and he's walking a little bit. He starts hearing shots and he sees one Jason laying on the ground, and the Jason's like, "I don't want to die." And he's like, "Are they there?" And like he can see Jason's being killed around him, and there's like a Rambo Jason. So he runs back in the house. One of those crazy Jasons came in the house and was trying to get at Daniela, and Jason 2 killed him. So, because he was fighting with our Jason 1, and Daniela and Charlie are coming from downstairs, and Daniela is like, get out of here, get out of here. We don't want you. We know everything now. And Jason 2 said, no, I didn't come here for that. I'm so sorry. So he gave his car keys to them, and he said, I'm so sorry. And they got in the car, and when they got in the car, they saw that Jason 2 had left them one of those cases with the vials, and Daniela asked, she said, how many are there, Charlie? Because Charlie had it. It was in the back seat. And Charlie said, about 40. So then, as they're about to drive off, Rambo Jason comes running at them, and they just ran him over. And, they took off, of course, and they said, I don't think we got followed. And so they go back to the warehouse where the box is at. And when they're coming downstairs to the level where the box is, they see that the entire floor is filled with Jasons. Yeah, they're just standing around by the box, and Daniela and Charlie looked a little afraid, but then one of the other Jason ones stepped forward, and he said, we're here to say goodbye. And then one of the Jasons ran to the front, and he said, why does he get her? Why does he get her? And then a couple of the other Jasons pushed him back and said, she made her choice, okay? And then Jason, Daniela, and Charlie start walking towards the box, and the Jasons are saying, let him through, let him through. You can hear the voices, the multitude of voices. And then on one side, the voices, some of the Jasons are saying, Daniela, 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 Daniela. And on the other side, some are saying, Charlie, 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 Charlie. It was so creepy. And then they were slowly parting like a sea of Jasons. And so the three of them get in the box, and I can't even imagine how poor little Charlie felt. So they get in the box, and of course, Jason can't pick the world because the other Jasons would know where to go. So they tell Charlie, you're going to have to pick the world for us. And then there's a montage. We see Amanda, and she's looking pretty good. She's looking happy and fit in the new world. We see, we see Ryan. Ryan won from the world 1. He is in a new world, and he's mixing up liquids in the lab, so you know what he's doing. Amanda is walking into a restaurant, and she's meeting a friend of hers, but also at the table, Ryan is there. And he gets up and he says, I've been looking all over for you. This was crazy. So the series as a whole, I would say the first several episodes went kind of slowly. Well, the first episode was interesting. It went slowly, but it had a lot of exposition. It built up and kind of explained the whole thing about the box and superposition. We didn't know it at the time, but when Jason was telling his class about Schrodinger's cat, he was actually telling us, the audience, about what was going to be in store with the superposition and the box and the blah, 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 and the observer and all of that. But yeah, it was interesting, but I would say it went kind of slowly. Like, I feel like there could have been one or two at least less episodes than there were, and some of those scenes with Amanda and Jason just dragged out. Like, it was boring, sorry to say so, But after we got to about episode 7, whew, things just picked up. And when the multitude of Jasons came into play, it got crazy. It got super crazy. So what are my thoughts on this series as a whole? I am intrigued to see where the family ended up, and also to see if Ryan will be traveling to different worlds. We did get a glimpse in the last episode also of Leighton 1. We could tell because he had those little blonde tips on his hair, and he was looking happy. He was closing the door to a world, and he looked so happy, like he's just living his best life, going to different worlds. I don't know what's going to happen when he runs out, because 50 vials, how long does that last? And I am curious about whatever happened to Leighton 2, the one that was on Jason 2's world that was following Jason 1 and Amanda into the box, and he looked all rough last time I saw him. I think it was about episode 2 or 3 that he was he was looking really rough. He was limping and scarred up and all that, but I don't think they've shown him since then. So I'm curious to figure out, to see what happened to him. But the themes, same themes. Who you are, it's based on, there's a core personality, and then all of our experiences are molding who we are. And also the whole thing with the box and the superposition, that was a way also of showing different sides of ourselves. I felt like Jason 1 and Jason 2, both of them, because we already established that Jason 2 had anger issues because he was showing it, but I believe that Jason 1 also mentioned it. He does have a little bit of that a-hole personality in him, because remember when Ryan won that award and he was thinking he should have won it, he was kind of like moping in the car and pissed off, and he wouldn't even go to celebrate with his friend at the bar until Daniela told him, hey, that's your buddy, you need to go and, like, support him. So yeah, there are core personality traits. Even the sweet version of Jason, the Jason 1 that we knew, after he split up and branched out, like he went Rambo and crazy, like psycho, whatever, due to the experiences that he saw in the box. Anyway, what do you think? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments, and just come on back.